Colonel Steve Barnes and his special team reached Dominion Prime 3 days before the main fleet was supposed to arrive. Their ship looked like a Vrake'thul supply vessel, thanks to the help of former slaves who knew the enemy technology. Approaching. Dominion Prime Traffic Control, said Keth, the alien volunteer who was pretending to be the ship's captain. Requesting permission to dock. Barnes held his breath as they waited for a response. If the Vrake'thul discovered who they really were, the mission would fail before it started. Supply ship Darkstar, you are cleared for docking at Station 7, came the reply. Proceed to Cargo Bay 12. They were in. The planet below them was huge and covered in dark cities. Massive space stations floated around it like metal moons. Each station had enough weapons to destroy a human fleet. Barnes counted at least 50 stations, plus hundreds of ships patrolling the system. Colonel, how are we supposed to disable all of this? Asked Corporal Julie Martinez. Barnes pointed to the largest space station. We don't need to disable everything, just that one. It's the command center that controls all the other defenses. If we can destroy it, the whole defense network will fall apart. Once they landed, Barnes's team split into small groups. They had to move carefully through the Vrake'thul cities. The aliens here had never seen humans before, but they had heard stories about the violent Deathworlders who were attacking the Empire. Keth led Barnes through underground tunnels that connected the major cities. I helped build these tunnels when I was a slave, Keth explained. The Vrake'thul used them to move supplies without being seen from space. They moved through the darkness, carrying explosive devices that would disable the defense stations. It took 2 days to get into position. All around them, Vrake'thul soldiers were preparing for the human attack they knew was coming. Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison was leading the main human fleet toward Dominion Prime. Ships came from every human world to join the final battle. The Earth Defense Fleet, the Mars Colony Guard, the Jupiter Mining Consortium ships, even civilian vessels that had been fitted with weapons. Dr. Nick Foster was working on the bridge of the Titan's Edge, coordinating with scientists from dozens of different species. The alliance that had started with the Kepler Collective now included 40 different alien civilizations. Captain, we're receiving support from the Zentari Republic, Nick reported. They're sending 20 warships to help with the attack. Jake was amazed. The Zentari had always been neutral in galactic politics. Now they were willing to fight alongside humans against the Vrake'thul Empire. Why are they helping us? Jake asked. Ambassador Veltar, who was on the bridge as an advisor, answered. Because you showed the galaxy something they had forgotten, Captain. You showed them that evil only wins when good people do nothing. The combined fleet was the largest armada in galactic history. Humans, Kepler crystalline beings, Zentari energy creatures, and dozens of other species working together for the first time ever. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner was studying the approaching enemy system. Captain, Dominion Prime has over 300 ships defending it, plus those space stations. We're still outnumbered. Numbers don't win battles, Alex. Hearts do. And our hearts are in the right place. Dr. Amy Chun was preparing the medical bays for the casualties that would come. She had learned to treat dozens of different alien species during the Liberation campaign. Now her medical team included doctors from 10 different worlds. Amy, how are our wounded from the previous battles? Jake asked. Sergeant Brooks is back. On duty. Marine Clark insisted on coming even though his arm isn't fully healed. Colonel Barnes. Well, we won't know about his mission until it's over. On Dominion Prime, Barnes and his team were in position. They had placed explosive charges on the main defense control station. Now they just had to wait for the signal to attack. Colonel, I'm picking up the human fleet on long-range scanners, reported Julie Martinez. They'll be here in 6 hours. Barnes looked around at his small team. They were hiding in a maintenance tunnel deep inside the enemy station. If they were discovered, they would all die, but their sacrifice would save thousands of lives in the coming battle. "Everyone remember the plan," Barnes whispered. "When Captain Morrison starts his attack, we blow these charges. That will confuse the enemy defenses long enough for our ships to get close." Keth, the former slave who had guided them here, spoke quietly. "Colonel, if we don't survive this, I want you to know something. You humans have given my people hope again. Before you came, we thought we would be slaves forever. Now we know that freedom is possible." Barnes put his hand on Keth's shoulder. "We're all going home, my friend. All of us." The human fleet arrived at the edge of the Dominion Prime system exactly on schedule. What they saw was terrifying. The enemy defenses were even stronger than they had expected. Massive energy cannons on the space stations could destroy entire ships with one shot. "All ships, this is Morrison," Jake said over the fleet communication system. "Today, we end this war. Today, we free the galaxy from tyranny. For every child who cries for their parents, for every family torn apart by slavery, for every innocent life lost to evil, we fight. And we will win." The battle began when the space stations opened fire. Energy beams cut through space like lightning. The first human ship to be hit, the Courage, exploded immediately. 50 good people died in that instant. But the human ships kept coming. They spread out, moving too fast for the big station guns to target easily. Dr. Foster's shield modifications helped protect them from the smaller weapons. "Kate, target the nearest space station," Jake ordered. "All weapons full power." Weapons Officer Kate Phillips fired everything the Titan's Edge had. The energy blasts hit the station's shields, but did not break through. "Their shields are too strong, Captain," Kate reported. "We need those charges to go off." On the space station, Barnes heard the sounds of battle starting outside. "That's our signal. Julie, set off the charges." Julie pressed the button. Explosions rocked the station as the charges Barnes's team had placed destroyed critical systems. Lights went out. Computers crashed. The defense network that protected Dominion Prime began to fall apart. It worked. Alex Turner shouted from his position on the Titan's Edge. "The station shields are failing." The human fleet attacked with everything they had. Ships from dozens of worlds fought side by side. Centauri Energy ships fired beams of pure light. Kepler crystal ships created sonic weapons that shattered enemy hulls. Human ships used their speed and tactics to confuse the larger enemy vessels. But the Vraekthul were not giving up easily. Their emperor, a massive creature called Supreme Leader Vorth, ordered every ship to fight to the death. He activated a secret weapon that had been hidden on Dominion Prime for centuries. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildup from the planet." "Surface," Alex reported. "It's some kind of doomsday weapon." Dr. Foster studied the readings. "Captain, if that weapon fires, it will destroy everything in this system. Our fleet, the planet, even their own people. Billions will die." Jake made the hardest decision of his life. "All ships, this is Morrison. I'm taking the Titan's Edge down to the planet's surface. We have to stop that weapon." "Sir, that's suicide," Danny Walsh said from the engine room. "The planet's surface is covered in defense guns. Then we'll have to be faster than the guns." The Titan's Edge dove toward Dominion Prime like a falling star. Enemy ships fired at them from all directions. Energy beams cut through their shields and tore holes in their hull. But they kept flying. Dr. Amy Chun was treating wounded crew members as fast as she could. The ship shook constantly from enemy fire. Medical supplies scattered across the floor. But she kept working, saving lives even as the ship fell apart around her. "Amy, we're approaching the planet." Jake said over the communication system. "Get everyone to emergency stations." The Titan's edge crashed through the planetary atmosphere. Below them was the Vrakthul Emperor's fortress. It was huge, the size of a human city. At its center was the Doomsday weapon, charging up to fire. "Kate, target that weapon with everything we have." "Sir, if we fire at full power this close to the ground, the explosion will destroy us too." Jake looked around his bridge at the crew that had followed him across the galaxy. Lisa Rodriguez at her communication station, still trying to coordinate the battle above. Alex Turner at his scanner, tracking enemy movements. Kate Phillips at her weapons ready to fire. Danny Walsh in the engine room, keeping their damaged ship flying. "I know," Jake said quietly. "Fire when ready." Kate fired every weapon the Titan's edge had. The energy blast hit the Doomsday weapon just as it was about to fire. The explosion was enormous. It vaporized the Emperor's fortress and everyone inside. It also destroyed the Titan's edge and everyone aboard her, but the weapon did not fire. Billions of lives across the galaxy were saved. Above the planet, the Vrakthul fleet stopped fighting when their emperor died. Without their supreme leader, the empire fell apart in hours. Regional commanders surrendered or fled. The Great War was over. Colonel Barnes and his team survived the destruction of the space station. They were rescued by Zentari ships and taken to safety. Barnes was sad when he learned about Captain Morrison's sacrifice, but he knew. After the victory at Theta Kepler, Captain Jake Morrison knew the real fight was just starting. The human fleet had won one battle, but the Vrakthul Empire was huge. They controlled 50 star systems and had hundreds of warships. Dr. Nick Foster was working day and night with Kepler scientists to study captured Vrakthul technology. They had taken computers and weapons from the destroyed enemy ships. What they learned was both good and bad news. "Captain, the Vrakthul Empire is bigger than we thought," Nick said. "But it's also weaker than it looks. They rely on fear more than actual strength. Most of their conquered worlds don't have many guards because the people are too scared to fight back." Jake studied the star maps that showed Vrakthul territory. It was enormous, stretching across dozens of solar systems. But Nick was right. Most of the enemy ships were spread thin across the empire, keeping conquered peoples afraid. What about their homeworld? Jake asked. Ambassador Veltar stepped forward. His crystal body was still cracked from the stress of recent events, but he looked stronger now that his people had hope again. "Dominion Prime is their capital world," Veltar said. "All their leaders live there. All their best technology is there. If you could destroy Dominion Prime, the Empire would fall apart." Dr. Helen Carter, who studied alien psychology, had been listening to captured Vrakthul communications. "Captain Veltar is right. The Vrakthul system is like a pyramid. Everything depends on the leaders at the top. Without them, the local commanders fight each other instead of working together." Jake called a meeting of all his senior officers. The war room on the Titan's edge was crowded with humans and aliens working together. It was something that had never happened before in galactic history. "Here's what we're going to do," Jake said, pointing at the star map. "We're going to split our forces into 3 groups. One group will continue liberating slave worlds. This will draw Vrakthul ships away from their home system. Another group will attack their supply bases and weapons factories. The third group will come with me to attack Dominion Prime directly." Colonel Steve Barnes raised his hand. "Captain, attacking their homeworld sounds like suicide. They'll have their best defenses there. That's why we need to be smart about it. Steve, I want you to take a special team and sneak onto Dominion Prime before the main attack. Sabotage their defenses from the inside." Steve smiled. "Now that sounds like fun." Dr. Amy Chun looked worried. Jake, dividing our forces is risky. We barely wanted Theta Kepler with our full fleet. If we split up, each group will be much weaker. I know it's dangerous, Amy, but this is the only way to end the war quickly. If we fight them system by system, it could take years. Millions more people will die as slaves. Over the next few days, the human fleet prepared for the biggest military operation in human history. Ships were repaired and resupplied. New weapons were installed using technology learned from the Kepler scientists. Soldiers trained for battles on worlds they had never seen. The liberation campaign began with attacks on 6 different Vreigthul systems at the same time. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner led one attack group. Commander Lisa Rodriguez led another. Each human force was small, but they moved fast and hit hard at the Vega system. Alex's ships found a world where the Vreigthul were using alien prisoners to build new warships. The human attack came without warning. The enemy ships were still under construction when Alex's weapons destroyed them. "This is Turner to all ships," Alex said over the radio. "Primary targets are down. Begin prisoner evacuation." Sergeant Linda Brooks was part of the ground team that landed on Vega Prime. What she found made her angry all over again. The Vreigthul had captured families from a dozen different species and separated the children from their parents. The children were being trained as slaves while the adults worked in factories. "This ends now," Linda said to her squad. "Find every prisoner. We're taking them all home." The human soldiers worked with rescued aliens to locate hidden prison camps. Many of the prisoners had been slaves for so long that they did not believe rescue was possible. Some were afraid that the humans were just another kind of conqueror. But when they saw human soldiers sharing their food with alien children, when they saw human doctors treating alien patients with the same care they gave humans, they began to understand. These strange warriors from a distant world really were there to help Marine Ryan Clark. His arm still healing from the battle at Theta Kepler, was helping evacuate a prison camp when Vreigthul reinforcements arrived. 50 enemy soldiers came to stop the rescue operation. "Sergeant Brooks," Ryan called out, "we've got company." Linda looked at the situation. Her squad of 12 humans was outnumbered, but between them and the enemy soldiers were hundreds of alien civilians who could not fight. "Ryan, take half the squad and get those people to the ships. I'll handle the guards." "Sergeant, there are 50 of them." "Then I guess I'll have to be very good." Linda and 5 other Marines stood between the enemy soldiers and the escaping prisoners. They used every trick they knew. They moved from cover to cover, making the enemy think there were more humans than there really were. They worked together perfectly, each Marine covering the others. The battle lasted 2 hours. When it was over, all 50 Vreigthul soldiers were down. Linda's squad had only minor injuries. More importantly, every single prisoner was safe. Meanwhile, the supply raids were causing chaos throughout the Vreigthul Empire. Commander Rodriguez's group hit weapons factories and fuel depots. Without supplies, many Vreigthul ships could not continue fighting. "Captain Morrison, this is Rodriguez," came the message from across the galaxy. "We've destroyed 17 supply bases in the last week. Enemy ships are running out of fuel and ammunition." "Good work, Lisa. How are your casualties?" "Light, sir." The enemy wasn't expecting attacks on their rear areas. Most supply bases only had small guard units. But the real test was still to come. Colonel Barnes and his special operations team were preparing to infiltrate Dominion Prime, the Vreigthul. Homeworld was protected by massive space stations and energy fields that could destroy entire fleets. Barnes studied images of the planet taken by long-range scanners. Dominion Prime was covered in huge cities and military bases. Millions of Vreigthul lived there, protected by the most advanced defenses in their empire. This is going to be the toughest mission any of us have ever tried, Barnes told his team. We have to get past their detection systems, land on the planet, and disable their defenses before Captain Morrison arrives with the main fleet. Corporal Julie Martinez raised her hand. Colonel, how are we supposed to get past their scanners? Our ships don't look like theirs. Barnes smiled. That's where our new friends come in. He gestured to a group of aliens who had volunteered to help. They were former Vrakthul slaves who knew the enemy systems well. With their help, Barnes's team would disguise their ship as a Vrakthul supply vessel. These people are risking their lives to help us, Barnes said. They could be safe on one of the liberated worlds. Instead, they're coming with us to the most dangerous place in the galaxy. That takes real courage. One of the alien volunteers spoke up. His name was Keth, and he had been a slave on Dominion Prime for 10 years before escaping. Colonel Barnes, my family died on that world. My children never got to see freedom. If I can help stop the Vrakthul from doing the same thing to other families, then this old slave's life will have meaning. Barnes felt proud to serve alongside such brave people. Humans were not the only heroes in this war, as the special operations team prepared for their mission. Captain Morrison was gathering the main attack fleet. Ships came from across human space to join the assault. The fleet was bigger than any force humanity had ever assembled. But Jake knew it might not be enough. Dominion Prime was the heart of the Vrakthul Empire. It would be defended by their best ships and most experienced commanders. Many humans would die in the coming battle. Dr. Amy Chun came to see Jake in his quarters the night before the attack. Are you sure about this plan? We could keep liberating outer worlds instead. Eventually, the Empire would collapse on its own. Jake looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, in the darkness between the stars, people were suffering. Under Vrakthul rule, children were being taken from their parents. Families were being destroyed. How many more people will die while we wait for the Empire to collapse naturally? Jake asked. How many children will grow up as slaves? No, Amy. This ends now. One way or another, this ends now. The final battle was about to begin. The attack began at sunrise on Theta Kepler. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Titan's Edge as his fleet moved toward the Vrakthul ships. The enemy had been lazy and confident. They did not expect anyone to fight back. All ships? This is Morrison, Jake said into his microphone. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for people who can't fight back. Every shot you fire, every risk you take, saves lives. Make them count. The space battle started. When the human ships came within range, the Vrakthul dreadnoughts fired first. Huge energy beams cut through space, missing the smaller human ships that moved like fighters around a giant. Dr. Nick Foster was tracking the enemy shield frequencies from his station. Kate, their shields will be weak in 3 seconds. Target: the big ship on the left. Weapons Officer Kate Phillips aimed all the Titan's Edge weapons at the enemy dreadnought. When Nick said now, she fired everything at once. The combined energy blasts punched through the weakened shields and tore a huge hole in the enemy ship. Direct hit. Kate shouted, "That one's hurt bad." But the Vrakthul had many ships. Energy beams came from all directions. The human ship Defender took a direct hit and exploded. 30 good people died in that moment. "Keep moving," Jake ordered. "Don't let them target us." Chief Engineer Danny Walsh was working hard to keep the Titan's Edge running. Every time Kate fired the big guns, it used enormous amounts of power. Every time they got hit by enemy fire, something broke. Danny and his team ran around the ship, fixing problems as fast as they happened. "Captain, I'm giving you everything I can," Danny said over the ship's communication system. But these engines weren't made for this kind of punishment. Just keep U.S. flying, Ganny. On the planet below, Colonel Steve Barnes was leading the ground attack. His job was to free the people in the slave camps while the ships fought above. It was dangerous work. The Vrakethal had thousands of soldiers on the planet. Sergeant Linda Brooks led her squad through underground tunnels that the Kepler people had told them about. The tunnels led to the biggest slave camp, where almost 50,000 alien prisoners were being held. Sergeant, we're outnumbered 20 to 1 down here, said Marine Ryan Clark. He was young but brave, and he had volunteered for the most dangerous part of the mission. Then we'll just have to be 20 times better than they are, Linda said with a smile. They moved quietly through the dark tunnels. Above them, they could hear the sounds of the space battle. Energy weapons fired, back and forth. Sometimes the ground shook when a ship exploded. When they reached the slave camp, Linda looked through a small opening in the tunnel wall. What she saw made her angry. Hundreds of alien workers were digging in a huge pit, while Vrakethal guards stood around them with energy whips. The aliens looked sick and scared. Ryan, take your team and hit the guard tower. Make lots of noise. I want every guard looking at you. What about you, Sergeant? I'm going to open the gates and get these people out. Ryan nodded. He knew it was dangerous, but someone had to do it. He led his Marines out of the tunnel and started shooting at the guard tower. The Vrakethal guards were surprised. They had never seen humans before. The Vrakethal were bigger and stronger than humans. Their weapons were better too. But they fought like bullies who had never faced real resistance. They stood in the open and fired wildly. They did not work. Together as a team, the human Marines were different. They moved fast and used cover. They worked together like parts of a machine. When one Marine ran out of ammunition, another was ready to cover him. Ryan's team kept the guards busy while Linda's squad opened the prison gates. The alien workers did not understand what was happening at first. They had been slaves for so long that they had given up hope. We're here to help you, Linda shouted. Follow us to the tunnels. Some of the aliens were too weak to walk. The Marines carried them. Others were too scared to move. Linda grabbed their hands and pulled them along. Come on, this is your chance. We're getting you out of here. Above in space, the battle was getting worse. The human ships were faster and smarter, but the Vrakethal ships were so big and had so many weapons. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner was keeping track of the battle from his position. Captain, we've lost 3 ships. The Courage, the Freedom, and the Liberty. The enemy has lost 2 dreadnoughts, but they still have 25 left. Jake felt sad about the lost ships and crews, but he could not stop fighting. Down on the planet, Colonel Barnes and his people were saving thousands of lives. Every minute. The space battle continued. More prisoners were freed. Alex, find me their command ship. The biggest one giving orders to the others. Alex studied his scanner screen. There, sir. The massive ship in the center of their formation. It's twice the size of the others. Jake made a decision that surprised everyone. Danny, give me everything you've got. Full power to engines and weapons. Sir, if I do that, we won't have power for shields. Do it anyway. The Titan's edge shot forward toward the enemy command ship like a bullet. The other human ships followed, creating a spear formation that drove straight into the enemy fleet. Dr. Amy Chun was treating wounded crew members in the medical bay. Every time the ship got hit, more people came to her with burns and cuts. But she kept working, patching people up so they could go back to fighting. Doctor, we need you on the bridge, came Jake's voice over the communication system. Amy ran to the bridge. When she got there, Jake pointed at his screen. It showed the inside of a Vrakethal command ship. Amy, I need to know about their biology. We're going to board that ship. How do we fight them? Amy studied the images that Alex's scanners had. Captured. The Vrake'thul were big creatures, almost 8 feet tall. They had thick skin and powerful muscles. But Amy noticed something important. Captain, look at their necks. See how thin they are compared to their bodies. That's their weak spot. Also, they have respiratory systems on their backs. If you can damage those, they can't breathe. Jake nodded. Kate, target their command ship. Everything we have. The Titan's Edge fired every weapon at the enemy command ship. The energy blasts hit just as Dr. Foster had predicted, when the shields were at their weakest. The command ship's hull cracked open like an egg. Alarms started going off on all the Vrake'thul ships. Without orders from their commanders, the enemy fleet began to fall apart. Some ships retreated. Others fired at each other by mistake. On the planet, Colonel Barnes got the word that the command ship was down. All teams, the enemy is confused. Now's our chance. Hit them hard. The human ground forces attacked every slave camp at the same time. Without orders from space, the Vrake'thul guards did not know what to do. They were used to easy victories against helpless prisoners. Fighting trained soldiers was completely different. Sergeant Brooks led a group of freed prisoners through the tunnels to safety. Many of them were aliens she had never seen before. They spoke languages she did not understand. But when they looked at her, she could see gratitude in their eyes. Sergeant Ryan Clark called out, "More guards coming." Linda turned around. 20 Vrake'thul soldiers were running toward them with energy weapons. Between the guards and the prisoners was open ground with no cover. Get the civilians behind those rocks. Linda ordered. Everyone else with me. Linda and her Marines stood between the guards and the prisoners. They were outnumbered, but they did not care. These alien people were under their protection now. The fight was short but fierce. The Vrake'thul were strong, and their weapons were powerful. But the humans fought with a determination that the guards had never seen before. When Ryan was shot in the shoulder, he kept fighting with one arm. When Linda's rifle broke, she picked up rocks and threw them down in the end. All 20 guards were down. The prisoners were safe. Back in space, the battle was ending. Most of the Vrake'thul ships were destroyed or running away. The ones that stayed were surrendering. Jake looked around. His damaged bridge. Many of his crew were hurt. 3 of his ships were destroyed. But they had one. Lisa, contact Colonel Barnes. How many people did we save? Estimated 200,000 prisoners freed, sir. All slave camps on Theta Kepler are now empty. Jake smiled for the first time in days. 200,000 people were going home to their families. But this was just one planet. The Vrake'thul Empire controlled 50 star systems. The real war was just beginning. The human fleet came out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. What they saw made everyone angry and sad. 3 of the 7 worlds were on fire. Huge black ships floated around the planets like vultures around dead animals. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner was looking at his scanner screen. Captain, those Vrake'thul ships are enormous. Each one is 3 times bigger than our biggest battleship. Jake Morrison stared at the enemy ships through the main window. They were covered in weapons he did not understand. Dark energy beams shot from the ships down to the planets below. Where the beams hit, cities disappeared. How many ships? Jake asked. 27 dreadnoughts, Alex said. Plus maybe 100 smaller ships. They have us outnumbered 5 to 1. Dr. Amy Chun was studying the readings from the attacked planets. Captain, I'm seeing massive life sign drops on 3 worlds. Billions of people live there. Now, ... She stopped talking and put her hand over her mouth. How many are left? Jake asked quietly. Maybe a few million, hidden in underground shelters. Jake felt sick. In just a few days, the Vrakethul had killed billions of innocent people. He wanted to attack right away, but he needed information first. Lisa, try to contact the surviving Kepler worlds. Communications officer Lisa Rodriguez worked at her station. After a few minutes, a signal came through. The screen showed Ambassador Veltar again. But now he looked different. His crystal body was cracked and dim. He looked like he had not slept in days. "Human ships?" Veltar said. His voice was full of surprise. "You really came?" "We're here to help," Jake said. "What's the situation?" Veltar's image shook as explosions happened somewhere near him. "We are at Sanctuary Station. It's a space station near the Fourth World. Most of our people who escaped are here. But the Vrakethul know where we are. They're coming for us." "How long do?" "You have? Maybe 2 days. Maybe less." Jake made his decision. "We're coming to get you. Hold on." The screen went dark. Jake turned to his officers. "Alex, I want to know everything about those enemy ships. Find their weak spots. Amy, work with the Kepler scientists. Learn how their technology works. Maybe we can use it. Danny, get every ship in our fleet running at maximum power." Over the next few hours, they learned terrible things about the Vrakethul. Dr. Helen Carter, the ship's alien psychology expert, studied intercepted enemy communications. What she found was horrifying. "Captain, the Vrakethul don't see other species as people," Helen said. "To them, we're all just animals. They think they have the right to kill us or make us slaves because they're stronger." "What do they do with the people they capture?" Jake asked. Helen looked sick. "Work them to death in mines. Use them as food. Some of the stronger ones become slaves on their ships." Jake felt anger burning in his chest. These Vrakethul were not just enemies. They were monsters. Colonel Steve Barnes came to the bridge. He was in charge of all the human soldiers on the Yasu fleet. "Captain, I want to take a team to one of those attacked planets. We need to see what we're dealing with." "Too dangerous, Steve." "Sir, with respect, we need to know how they fight on the ground. If we're going to beat them, we need information." Jake thought for a moment. Steve was right. Take your best people. Stay hidden. Get in and out fast. Steve nodded. "Yes, sir." While Steve prepared his mission, Dr. Nick Foster worked with Kepler scientists to study Vrakethul technology. Nick was the fleet's science officer. He was very smart and good at understanding how alien machines worked. "Captain, I found something important," Nick said over the communication system. He was on one of the other human ships, working with a team of Kepler engineers. "What did you find?" "The Vrakethul shields. They're very strong, but they have a weakness. The shield frequency changes in a pattern. If we can predict the pattern, we can hit them when their shields are weak." "How long do you need to figure out the pattern?" "Give me 12 hours. Meanwhile, Colonel Barnes and his team reached the planet called Theta Kepler. What they found there made even tough soldiers cry. The Vrakethul had built huge mining camps where they forced captured aliens to work. The conditions were horrible. People were dying every day. Sergeant Linda Brooks watched through her scope as Vrakethul guards beat alien workers who moved too slowly. "Colonel, we have to do something." "Not yet, Brooks. We're not here to fight. We're here to learn." But it was hard to just watch. The Vrakethul treated the alien workers like they were not alive. They gave them almost no food or water. When workers collapsed from exhaustion, the guards just left them to die. Barnes counted the enemy forces. There were thousands of Vrakethul soldiers on this planet alone. They had energy weapons that could cut through almost anything. But Barnes also noticed something important. "Brooks, you see how they fight?" Linda looked through her scope. "They don't use tactics, sir. They just rely on their superior weapons and numbers. Exactly. They've never fought anyone who could really fight back. They're sloppy. Barnes made notes about everything he saw. Guard rotations, weapon positions, weak points in their defenses. When they got back to the fleet, this information would help plan the attack. Back at Sanctuary Station, Ambassador Veltar was trying to keep his people calm. Millions of refugees crowded the station. They had escaped from 3 destroyed worlds. With nothing but their lives, will the humans really help us? Asked a young Kepler child. Her crystal body was very small and scared. Veltar looked out the window at the distant human ships. They looked so small compared to the Vrakethul dreadnoughts. But somehow, seeing them made him feel hope for the first time in days. Yes, little one, they will help us. They came when no one else would. The child looked confused. But why? We're not their people. Our worlds are not their worlds, Veltar smiled sadly. Because that's what heroes do, child. They help people who need help, even if those people are strangers. On the Titan's edge, Jake was making the final plans for battle. Dr. Foster had cracked the shield frequency pattern. Colonel Barnes had returned with intelligence about enemy ground forces. The human fleet was ready, but Jake knew this would be the hardest fight of his life. The enemy was bigger, stronger, and had better technology. Many humans would die in the coming battle, but that did not matter. Somewhere on those burning planets, innocent people were suffering and dying. Children were crying for their parents. Families were being torn apart. That was all Jake needed to know. Tomorrow, the human fleet would attack. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the Titan's Edge. The stars outside looked peaceful, but Jake knew that peace was about to end. His communications officer, Lisa Rodriguez, was staring at her screen with wide eyes. "Captain, you need to see this," Lisa said. Her voice was shaking a little. Jake walked over to her station. On the screen was a message that had traveled across the galaxy. The computer had translated it from an alien language. The being on the screen was tall and made of what looked like living crystal. His name was Veltar, and he was scared. "People of the galaxy," Veltar said in the translated message. "My name is Veltar. I speak for the Kepler Collective. We are 7 peaceful worlds. We have never hurt anyone. We only want to live in peace and learn about the universe." Jake watched as tears fell from the alien's crystal face. He had never seen an alien cry before. "But now we are going to die," Veltar continued. "The Vrakethul Empire has found us. They are coming to destroy everything we have built. They will kill our people and take our worlds. We have tried to fight them, but they are too strong. We have tried to talk to them, but they do not listen. They only want to destroy and conquer." The message showed pictures of Vrakethul ships. They were huge and black, covered in weapons. They looked like flying nightmares. "We have sent this message to every world we can reach," Veltar said. "We are asking for help. Please, if anyone can hear this, help us. We do not want to die. Our children do not want to die. But the Vrakethul are coming, and we cannot stop them alone." The message ended. The bridge was quiet for a moment. "How many other species got this message?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her computer. "At least 50 different civilizations, sir." "Maybe more. And how many answered?" Lisa's face was sad. "None. Sir, we are the first to respond." Jake was not surprised. Most alien species thought humans were dangerous. They called Earth a death world because it was so hard to live on. Other planets were safe and easy. Earth had storms, earthquakes, dangerous animals, and diseases. Only the strongest life could survive on Earth. Because of this, other aliens thought humans were too violent and scary. They did not want to be friends with humans. They thought humans would start fights and cause trouble, But Jake did not care what other aliens thought. 7 peaceful worlds were about to be destroyed. Children were going to die. That was all that mattered. Lisa, send a message to Earth Defense Command. Tell them we need to talk to Admiral Peter Hayes right away. Yes, sir. While Lisa worked, Jake called his senior officers to the bridge. Dr. Amy Chun came first. She was the ship's doctor and scientist who studied aliens. Then came Danny Walsh, the chief engineer who kept the ship running. Finally, Kate Phillips arrived. She was in charge of all the ship's weapons. What's the situation, Captain? Amy asked. Jake played the alien message for them. He watched their faces as they saw Veltar crying and begging for help. By the end, Amy was crying too. Danny looked angry. Kate was checking her weapon systems. Those Vrakthul sound like real monsters, Danny said. How can they just attack peaceful people like that? Because they can, Kate said. Because no one stops them. Admiral Hayes appeared on the main screen. He was an old man with gray hair and kind eyes. But Jake could see anger in those eyes now. I saw the message, Jake, the Admiral said. The whole Defense Council is meeting right now. We're going to help those people. What are our orders, sir? Get your ship ready for a long journey. You're going to lead our biggest fleet ever to the Kepler system. We're going to save those worlds. Jake felt his heart beat faster. How big a fleet, sir? Every ship we can spare. Every soldier we can send. If those Vrakthul want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget. The screen went dark. Jake turned to his officers. You heard the Admiral. We have work to do. Amy, learn everything you can about the Kepler species. I want to know how to help them. Danny, push our engines as hard as you can. Every hour we save might save lives. Kate, get our weapons ready. From what I saw, those Vrakthul ships are big and mean. Over the next few hours, the Titan's Edge became very busy. Engineers worked to make the ship faster. Doctors prepared medical supplies for alien patients they had never treated before. Soldiers cleaned their weapons and studied maps of worlds. They had never seen. Jake stood in his cabin, looking out at the stars. Soon, his ship and many others would travel to a distant part of the galaxy. They would fight an enemy they had never met to save people they had never seen. Most species in the galaxy thought humans were too dangerous to trust. They thought humans were violent and unpredictable. Maybe they were right. But when innocent people cried out for help, humans did not hesitate. They did not ask what they would get in return. They did not worry about the danger. They just came to help. Jake smiled as he watched the stars. The Vrakthul Empire was about to learn something important about humans. When someone needed a hero, humans always answered the call. The fleet was almost ready. Soon they would show the galaxy what real heroes looked like.